What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Back Pocket Podcast. I am Suraj Kadali, and today I will be doing our Week 2 NFL predictions. I am with my lovely co-host, Charlie Nidell. Charlie, how are you doing today?
Doing well. I'm not going to be after this video because I have a whole essay to write, but that's okay. We still have time for the videos. I'm excited to get into the predictions.
Our Week 1 predictions, I haven't checked it exactly, but I'm pretty sure I'm in last place, so that's
Yep.
that's not good. That's
I can
not
give
good, but
quick standings.
I'm a bounce back, but that's not a good start for me. I know, Charlie, you're probably in first. That's
Yeah,
what.
I currently have 14 correct of 17 or of 16, sorry.
Oh my God,
Um
damn. There's.
wait, 14 13 of
Yeah,
16.
you.
Then Dylan and Kian each have 12, and Serge, you're sitting in last place with 10.
Yeah, all right. So I'm 10-6. I'm basically I'm a wild card team. I'm.
One at home. Uh That being said, I'm gonna pick the Bills because offensively they looked pretty unstoppable last week, and the Dolphins defense did not exactly look up to the task against a pretty weak Jacksonville offense. Brian Thomas made Jalen Ramsey look like the rookie in that matchup, and I think Josh Allen is going to be so much more capable than Trevor Lawrence against this defense, which is just going to struggle this year. Um, I'm expecting fireworks in this one. I'm expecting probably 25 plus points from both teams, but give me the Bills just barely in Miami.
Yeah, both teams won Week 1. It wasn't really that convincing. I mean, the Bills kind of barely held on against the
Yep.
Cardinals. Dolphins the same, had to come from behind against the Jags. Um, I'm agree with you. I'm gonna take the Bills. I think their defense, which kind of struggled against Arizona, is gonna bounce back against Miami, have a good performance. Josh Allen maybe looked like the best quarterback in Week 1, arguably. I would say, like on an efficiency basis. I think he's gonna have another good game, and I think the Bills' offensive line against the Dolphins' defensive line is gonna be a bit of a mismatch. So give me the Bills in this one.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next game, though. Now we have the 49ers going to Minnesota to play the Vikings. I'm gonna go first on this one. I think this is easy for me. The 49ers will win this. The Vikings had a good Week 1 performance against the Giants. Looked good. We looked their passing attack looked better than I thought it would. But against the 49ers team that, like, they made a statement on Monday night against the Jets, who were definitely a team that a lot of people liked going into this season, but the Niners, they ran the ball very well without Christian McCaffrey. They played good defense. Their offensive line looked like surprisingly very good for something that's considered a weak point for them. So I think San Francisco's just too complete. They'll go into Minnesota and get a Week 2 win.
Yeah, agreed. I think regardless of whether it's McCaffrey at running back or Jordan Mason at running back, it's clear that they can still run the football and operate a fully flying offense. I think the one downside is obviously Jake Moody kicked six field goals last night,
Mhm.
which is far too many field goals. Um, you should be scoring touchdowns when you get closer to the end zone and closer to the red zone. They lacked sort of that finishing touch. I believe they only had two touchdowns and six field goals, but I don't expect them to run into any real issues with this Vikings team. Um, Sam Darnold had a great week against the Giants, but it was a really, really weak Giants performance in which, the Vikings just dominated everything. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with the Niners in this one.
Yeah. I think that's pretty popular pick. Now we have the Seattle Seahawks going to New England to play the Patriots. Charlie, I'll leave it to you first.
This is an interesting one to me. I think the Patriots definitely have a leg to stand on in this game, which is interesting because I feel like Patriots haven't really had that in a couple years now. I feel like not a popular prediction pick, the Patriots. That being said, I'm gonna take the Seahawks because I think the Patriots did look like probably the better of the two teams in week one, but I still think the Seahawks have more going for them, at least until Drake May gets handed the keys to the car and, until they figure out their receiving core. Because I didn't watch the Patriots game, the Patriots Bengals, but the Bengals always start weak. They just, for whatever reason, can't seem to figure it out in the first week of the season, even when they went to the Super Bowl. I believe they lost in week one, but I definitely am gonna prefer the Seahawks here. But in New England, I don't expect it to be any kind of blowout.
Yeah, no. I expect this to be a very defensive matchup. I mean, obviously, no longer Bill Belichick is there, but new coach Gerard Mayo kind of brings that similar kind of style, similar scheme, and the Patriots defense still looks like it's going to be a good unit in 2024. And then the Seahawks, bringing in Mike McDonald, probably my favorite coaching hire of the whole cycle, and their defense looked really good, albeit against a rookie Bo Nix and a Broncos offense that isn't expected to do much, but they looked good, and I think against another um weak offense, in my opinion. I know the Patriots did win, but that was more because of their defense. I think it'll be another good defensive showing. I'm gonna give it to the Seahawks as well. I think they're better equipped to handle New England's run game. I think Jacoby Brissett, while I think he's a solid like a solid bridge starter, I don't think he's gonna be able to do much against this defense. And I think this Seattle have enough weapons to overcome New England. So I think they'll win on the road. It'll be a tough game. It'll be a close game, but I think Seattle edges it out there.
Yeah.
Moving on, Charlie, we have your New York Giants going to play the Washington Commanders. Yeah, I'm this doesn't look like a great matchup. Like just when you look at it, it doesn't look very exciting. Although there are some things that are interesting. I think getting to watch Jaden Daniels, who I thought a solid, like not a great performance, but he was fine. He especially running the ball, he looked like a threat there, and that's gonna definitely help him in his rookie season. But the Commanders, I feel like they're heading to the basement again. They're gonna be one of the worst teams in the National Football League again. And I think if there's any game that's a get right game for the New York Giants, it's the Washington Commanders, who they've I feel like every time I've seen the Giants play the Commanders, no matter what their record is, the Giants have really they've had the better of the matchup the last few years. So I think that's gonna continue. It'll be not a great game for the neutral. I will say that, but I expect their running game to be a lot better. I think Daniel Jones will be he'll be fine. He won't be great, but he'll be good enough. And I think Neighbors will have a good day, especially against a weak secondary. So I think the Giants will win that one.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to disagree with you. I think that this will be an exciting game to watch for the neutral because I think it's going to be a game filled with mistakes and filled with exciting highlight plays because of, mistakes for the most part. But that makes it a fun game for the neutral to watch. I think Jaden Daniels is just fun to watch.
He is for sure.
And when running the ball, Daniel Jones is also fun to watch. And then you've also got Malik Neighbors, who's fun to watch. So I think there will be moments of entertainment in this game, but I agree with you. I don't think this is going to be some standout, crazy game that, people will be talking about. It will not be a talked about game. I also want to pick the Giants because, I'm hoping like last season after they lost 40-0 to the Cowboys, they rebound and
Hmm.
have a stronger week two showing. I don't really see it happening. Like I just don't think that watching the team play this weekend, they just didn't seem like a team that was well built to win.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it was about it. I think truly the main thing was Daniel Jones, who just looked so unimpressive. And coming off of an injury, I get it. I do. But if this continues for a few more games, it's time to move on. And defensively, they just didn't look as strong as I was expecting. But I think against a rookie quarterback, against a Commanders offense, they will definitely get a rebound week this week. So I'm also going to take the Giants, but I mean truly just barely.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be it'll be a close one. It'll be a close one. Moving on again now to the next game, another not so great matchup. We've got the Chargers going to Carolina to play the Panthers. What do you think about this one, Charlie?
This is like my lock of the week. Even though the
Hmm.
Chargers are not a very good football team, the Panthers are so bad that if the Chargers don't win, then like Justin Herbert needs to be studied because there's got to be a
No,
reason why
the
he
whole team.
can't
There's
win
got it.
football games, right? Um, I think the Panthers are one of those teams that can go down like the 2024 Panthers. It's like the 0-16 Browns or the 0-16 Lions. Like it's truly they could be that bad this season. And I
Hmm.
hope for his sake that Bryce Young improves over the course of the season. But right now it just does not look likely. He had a pick on his first pass attempt of the week or of the
Yeah,
season.
it was a
Um,
bad one too. It wasn't good.
he did not look good this week, and neither did anybody else on the Panthers as Surge, you even picked the Panthers to win last week, and they let up
I changed
47 points against
yeah,
the Saints.
47. It was like it wasn't
And the
good.
Saints aren't exactly a good football team. The Saints are a pretty bang average, maybe below average football team that
Blowout,
scored
yeah.
47 points on this Carolina Panthers team that not only was really bad last season, but did not have a first round pick, lost their best football player, and didn't sign anyone huge in the offseason. So I don't see any room for improvement among this Panthers team unless it solely comes from Bryce Young and he turns into some MVP all of a sudden. Maybe then they'll win 5 games.
Yeah, no, I think 100% agree with you. I think the Chargers will win this. I think the Panthers were already going to be a very bad team, but now after losing Derek Brown as well,
That's
their
true.
best defensive player for I don't know if it's for the season, but it's definitely
I
for a
think it's for
while.
the season.
I just don't see anything redeemable about the Carolina Panthers at all. And Bryce Young, I mean, one of his main things, he's not that big and he's not really even that mobile, but the main thing about him is his accuracy, and that looks all over the place, which is definitely something to be concerned about. Meanwhile, the Chargers, I mean, they're not talented at the skill positions necessarily, but in the trenches, I mean, Joe Alt looked really good in his debut against Max Crosby, and Rashawn Slater obviously very good as well. Justin Herbert's going to have time to throw. They're going to be a bit more protected. And against, again, a very weak Panthers defensive line, they're going to be able to run the ball well with J.K. Dobbins, who had a great game on his first game back from
He did.
a torn Achilles. So I think that's something. I think he'll have a good game against the Panthers. I think their defense as well looked good with Jesse Minter. I think I love that hire. I mean, being at Michigan, watching his defense, it was an NFL level defense. I mean, at least the way they were coached. Not that they would go into the NFL and be good, but they were they looked like an NFL defense, and I think that was a great hire from them, and it looks like it's already paying dividends there. So yeah,
Yeah,
another bad week for the Panthers, I think.
I will clarify too that I don't think Bryce Young is a bad quarterback at all. I think this is a guy with, clearly had buckets of potential when he came into the NFL.
He has room to
And
he can improve for sure.
I think it's really unfortunate that the Panthers really sold their soul just to get him
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, he has no one around him. So it's hard for a quarterback to come into a system where they don't have much of a running game, although that might be their best attribute right now is their running game, and they don't have much of a running game. His wide receiver one last season was Adam Thielen, like a 33-year-old Adam Thielen, who was good last season. But let's be honest, he has no offensive line. He has no receiving core. He has no
Hmm.
running game. The defense is one of the worst in the NFL. I just feel bad because some guys get
Oh
put in good
yeah,
situations and some guys don't. And it happens. It just
yeah.
happens. And Bryce
Even by
Young was,
first overall pick standards, this is bleak.
and it just tacks on to how bad it was by the fact that they traded away this year's number one overall pick, which, doesn't matter who that ends up leading to. But they just they thought that Bryce Young could walk into this team and be the leader of this Moneyball team that, they're not even playing Moneyball. They're just playing who can we find that's like not that good and put
Who's
him
on the
here.
street? Yeah, exactly.
Who like who do they
Who's on the
even
street that
pay?
can like play nose tackle for us or something like that?
Right.
It's just
I
like
I truly wonder who like I'm not looking at the Panthers salary situation right now. Who are they paying that they can't bring in top caliber players? Because bad teams bring in high paid players
I mean
all the
they
time.
brought in Deontay Johnson via trade, so his contract is like not even that bad, but it's still
But
a
but it's a
contract.
receiver contract. They're not paying an edge contract. They're not paying a quarterback contract.
Robert
They're
Hunt,
not
they made
paying
him a
anything.
highly they paid him highly to be their new guard.
But it doesn't
They,
add when you look at teams like the Cowboys who pay Dak Prescott the highest contract for a quarterback in NFL history and CeeDee Lamb the highest contract for a receiver in NFL history. It
mhm.
doesn't add up because the Panthers,
Well, the difference is
who
the
are they
Cowboys
paying?
draft well. That's the main difference to me.
No,
I
the
think.
Cowboys definitely draft well. They grabbed Dak Prescott. They got CeeDee Lamb. They drafted Micah Parsons. They drafted Ezekiel Elliott. They do draft well, but they had to pay those guys. They just paid them both, and they had the
Mhm.
room to do it. But the Panthers don't even have the room to pay some decent to good players to support their number one overall pick.
So their highest paid contracts are Taylor Motton, the tackle, who's solid, Austin Corbett, the guard, and then Deontay Johnson.
Right.
So
So like you
who's
look at
paying
and
and those are worth 12 right now. Their cap numbers this year are 23 million, 10 million, and 10 million. So not that much, honestly.
it's not much at all. That's the price for one quarterback in this day and
Hmm.
age. I mean, Dak Prescott's getting paid 60 a year, which is
Way
more than
more than
that.
like the combined 43 million.
That combined 43 million is getting paid less than probably the top 10 quarterback contracts. That's almost as much as Daniel Jones. Or I mean, it's more than Daniel Jones, but it's, you know, almost the same value as that. And that's just one player.
Hmm.
So they're paying three players that value. How do they not have the room to go get somebody else to support it? I don't get it, but we can move on to the Panthers. They're a
Yeah,
lost cause.
no, it's a bad situation there. But yeah, let's move on to the next game. Um, I mean, both of these teams had very good week ones. We have the Saints going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. I think there's a clear gap in like which team is better, but the Saints looked like a really good team. Like Derek Carr looked like he channeled like prime Drew Brees for that game. I mean, albeit it
Yeah.
was against the Panthers, I will say, but they looked dominant on offense and on defense, winning 47 to 10 there. I think defensively we expect the Saints to be a solid unit, but offensively, I mean, Chris Olave didn't even have a good game, but they were still so dominant. I think obviously Rashid Shaheed had a good game. Alvin Kamara had a good game. So they had a good performance there. And then the Cowboys really felt like a statement win for them going to Cleveland and beating the Browns who made the playoffs last year. So I'm gonna give my prediction. I think the Cowboys will win this one, especially at home. We know last year how dominant they were when they were playing at home. I think the defense looked really impressive. I mean, we've said that the past few seasons, but again, the Browns offense is actually well, they would be if they didn't have Deshaun Watson at quarterback, but they still, I feel like, are like a solid offense. They were last year with Joe Flacco was their quarterback. But I think that was a great win for the Cowboys. I think one of their weak points, the linebacking core looked like a lot stronger with Eric Kendrick and Demarion Overshone. And I think that's something to be really excited about there. And I think they're going to just overwhelm the Saints offense, who's really going to not be accustomed. It's going to be a shock going from this Panthers defense to the Cowboys defense. So I think Dallas are going to take that one.
Yeah, I really do like I think the Saints are fine this year. They played great last week. That being said, it's going to be a bit of a harsh reality check, I think. I don't think it'll be a close football game in Dallas, and they're going from playing the worst team in the NFL by a good margin to playing one of the better teams in the NFL. And it's just going to be a very harsh reality check for Derek Carr and the Saints. So
Yeah,
give me the
I
Cowboys for sure.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty easy for both of us there. Moving on now, you have the Green Bay Packers playing the Indianapolis Colts. Jordan Love probably not playing this one, so I think they
He's
would
not.
go with Malik Willis. So, Charlie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Colts pretty simply. I think that the Colts are, at least when Jordan Love is not on the field, I'm talking. I
Hmm.
think the Colts are a better football team. Richardson looked fine last week. I wouldn't say he
Hmm.
was anything super impressive like we thought last season, but he put up a good fight against a very solid Texans team. And the Packers losing Jordan Love for, I believe, 3 to 6 weeks is really, really bad because that's their franchise quarterback who has looked super, super impressive in his time as their quarterback. I'm going to take the Colts just because that injury is a big deal. And it's not like they have a backup who has any NFL experience, and it's Malik Willis, who
Yeah, who's one of the worst quarterbacks with
just
all due
isn't good,
respect. Yeah,
right?
he isn't
Just
good.
isn't good.
That's
So,
what I'll say.
yeah.
He's not good enough to run an NFL offense. Anthony Richardson, he looked like I was talking about. I don't know if I was texting my brother. I was watching the game. I think Anthony Richardson is the best worst quarterback I've ever seen. Like he looks like if you watch his complete game, he looked like he missed some gimmies. Like he missed Adonai Mitchell 2 times for a touchdown, had an interception where he missed a guy that was open. And he has those throws and you think, how is this guy in the league? And then he has the stat line where he goes 9 for 19 passing. But then he has like 200, like what was it? Passing yards. I think it was like
Well,
200.
he
It was
had the
200
third longest air yards completion in
ever,
the Super
right? It
Bowl
was something
era
like
or something.
yeah.
I
65.3
don't remember
yards through the
exactly.
air. I think it was 65.3, something like that.
Yeah.
But so when you for most quarterbacks, 99% of quarterbacks, going 9 for 19 and throwing an interception means you're going to have a bad game. You're going to be the reason your team loses. Anthony Richardson, the rules just don't apply to him because because when you like run 4-4-40 and you can throw a ball like a gajillion yards down the field, it just doesn't apply to you because with one play you can change a game like that. And he had multiple plays. He had the long throw to Pierce, he had the throw to Doolin where he just like threw a missile and fired it right in there and allowed Doolin to run for the touchdown there. He had the running touchdown as well where he kind of had to like run over a guy to get in the end zone. He just has those plays where even if he's having a bad game, he can make a play that no other quarterback or maybe one or two others. I think Josh Allen's really the only one that can like that he's the only other guy that can make that kind of play. So I think
Yeah, it just matches the arm talent there. It's tough.
it's he's unreal. So I think with that in mind, I think he'll make some maddening mistakes, but he's also gonna make some amazing plays that win the Colts this game because Malik Willis the doesn't have that ability and the Packers are just gonna be forced to be a running team. And I think Indianapolis are good enough of a defense to kind of stop that one-dimensional team. So I think the Colts will win
Yeah.
this one.
But look, I also think that there is an element of surprise that the Packers can almost come out with because they've got a quarterback in Malik Willis who, while
Hmm.
he is, I'm not going to call him good by any means. I already called him bad earlier 2 minutes ago, but he can run the football. He's really fast.
He can.
And they have one of the best running backs in the league in Josh Jacobs. And then they've got guys like Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs, both of whom can take the ball in the backfield, take screens, and make something happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is not that, bad of a game. I think it could be close. I think at least from the Packers end, it's going to be a bit boring is the only
I
thing.
think Anthony Richardson would have to have like an implosion level game for it to be a game, which is possible because we see that the bad can be very bad. But I think the offense that he generates is going to be enough for
Yeah,
like
I mean,
enough
I
to like put Green
I
Bay
think
away
it would
this one.
have to look like I think it would have to look like a Will Levis type game where,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Bears
That's
offense
exactly
did
what he would have to do.
nothing. The Bears offense
Hmm.
did absolutely nothing on Sunday, but then
Hmm.
Levis threw them a game-winning pick six.
Yeah, I agree.
They're gonna
That's
need some help from the Colts to win this game, but the Packers are a capable team even without Jordan Love. I'm still gonna take the Colts because I don't think Richardson's gonna make one of those mistakes.
mhm. But let's move on now. Next game, Cleveland Browns coming off a loss to Dallas, going to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars, who also coming off a disappointing loss in the game that I think they really should have won. And this is a close game. I think Deshaun Watson looks really bad. And I think if it weren't for him being the quarterback, I would pick the Browns. But I'm honestly just so deterred by his performance that I think I'm going to pick the Jaguars because they looked good. They looked like, even though they lost, they looked better than I thought they would. I thought Trevor Lawrence for, until like kind of the second half, but he looked good in the first half. The receiving core, Brian Thomas looked good. They have Kirk as well. I think they've got weapons to throw to, and Evan Ingram, they have him as well. ETN, although he fumbled like the touchdown that would have won them the game, but I thought they looked good. I thought their defense looked
He
good as
fumbled on a
well. Yeah,
touchdown run.
not a touchdown.
Okay, I was
Basically,
gonna say because I had him in freaking fantasy and I wasn't watching,
he
and when I
was. Oh
saw he
no, he was
fumbled, I
gonna.
was
He was
so
at yeah.
mad.
He was at the 1 yard line, and it was punched out by Javon Holland, and and that's
I mean,
how
I
and that's
won
how
in
they lost.
fantasy. Like, I don't actually care, but I want people to think my players are like really good. So
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, that was the reason they lost that game. Otherwise, they were going to win. But I thought their defense as well looked very good.
yeah,
And I think they're going to cause problems again for Cleveland. And I think that that's going to be the difference. And I think the Jaguars will take this one.
yeah. For the first time this video, we're gonna disagree on one.
Mm.
You've been doing the smart thing so far and just tailing whatever I pick. Obviously, I had three more correct than you last week, so I get it. I
Wow.
get that you want to do
I
that.
need to make it back.
Um,
I need to make it back.
you have to come back at some point, and if I was gonna be a total, dick, I could just copy all your picks so that you could
Mm.
never beat me from now on.
That
But I'm
would
not
that would
gonna
be
do that
great.
because I want to beat you by even more, and I still have to beat Keenan Dillon too. So I am gonna pick the Browns in this one. Um, I think the Browns defense, even though they weren't great against the Cowboys, that was the Cowboys, and the Cowboys in regular season games like tend to have a really, really good offense. Um, but they still have Myles Garrett and they still have a solid defense. Denzel Ward looked really good multiple times. But I think the Jaguars don't have quite as much um of a team build as the Browns do. I think the Jaguars have a couple players that I do really like. Travis Etienne, obviously I like. He's on my fantasy football team. Brian Thomas, I drafted in a couple leagues because I think he's a really, really good player. But I don't think that, coaching wise and all around player wise, they stack up quite as well with the Browns. I think the one advantage that they do have is um, Deshaun Watson's not their quarterback.
Hmm.
So we'll see how it goes. And obviously it is in Jacksonville, but I'm going to take the Browns in this one. I think um, Deshaun will do enough offensively because I don't think the Jaguars are going to be scoring that many points.
Yeah, so first disagreement there. Now we have my New York Jets going to Tennessee to play Tennessee Titans. You know what, Charlie? I'm gonna let you have the floor on this one first. What do you think?
The Jets looked so awful last night.
Mm.
The Jets looked so awful last
No,
night.
on defense, I agree. I think
With the
offense there was.
exception of a couple plays, because they did have a couple of really nice plays. Rodgers' throw down the sideline
To
to
Lazard
Lazard.
and the touchdown on the free play.
The touchdown was a nice throw too, but that ball down the sideline to Lazard was one of the nicest throws I've seen in a long time. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
perfectly placed, and he showed you what Aaron Rodgers can do. But other than a few throws, he wasn't very good. He looked a little slow. I mean, as to be expected from a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles tear,
Hmm.
and hasn't played, more than 4 snaps of football in 2 seasons. But I do think that their offense was good enough to beat the Titans this week. Defensively, they were not strong considering they were, slated to come in by many and be the best defense in the entire league. They were not close. They were not close last night. And it was honestly a bit of I'm not going to say it was an embarrassing defensive showing because the Niners are so good, but by the Jets standards
It was, yeah,
and,
I agree. It was.
and by the expectations they've set for themselves this season and everybody else has set for them, that shouldn't have happened. They scored
Hmm.
32, the Niners.
It was 32, but it was more so how we couldn't get off the field. And like
Right.
they just ran the ball
It it was
down
bad.
the
It
field all
was
day
it was
long.
not good.
Hmm.
I am going to take the Jets though because I think this defense, as good as it is going to be able to put Will Levis in a little bit of a blender. It's going to be hard for him to get much going, especially with the limited offensive weapons he has in Tennessee. I expect the Jets defense to, potentially hold a shutout in this game. So, that being said, my expectations are not, that high. If they let up 10 points, I wouldn't be disappointed, but I'm going to take the Jets for sure.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna take the Jets as well. I agree with you 100%. Very disappointing performances. I think the two solaces that I can take from this game is that I actually thought Rodgers looked decent. For someone coming off an Achilles tear, I mean, he was the stat line isn't the best stat line. I think I'm just gonna pull it up 13 for
No,
21, 167 yards, a touchdown, interception. But
but
the
passing
interception.
yards are very down last week. And I
Yeah,
don't know exactly what it was.
it's a
It
running league
was
again.
they showed the stat last night during the game
Hmm.
that it was the week the week as a whole had the third lowest or fifth lowest passing yards per game since 2000 or something.
Hmm.
Um,
It's the
it was really low.
offensive counter because like I think you're seeing now a lot more defenses play that kind of bracket coverage too high shell and are trying to kind of like, limit the high powered offenses that have been
Yeah,
happening in recent years. And now you're seeing the offenses readjust and kind of run the ball a lot more, which is kind of what you saw the Jets try and do and fail to do against San Francisco. And that's why they kind of they would go three and out, then the Niners would have a long drive, and the Jets would have a drive for touchdown, then the Niners would have a long drive, and then they'd go three and out again. And that was the story of the game for me.
yeah,
And I think Rodgers looked good I thought he looked good at times. I think
yeah,
PFF, I think I
definitely.
saw had him as the fifth highest graded quarterback. But I disagree that he was the
Feels a
fifth
little
best
steep for
quarterback.
a team that
But
lost,
but I-
but
but I think it checks out that the eye test proves that he was better than the stat line does.
No,
Um,
he did have some very impressive moments. He looked like Aaron Rodgers in
yeah.
moments, and he looked like a 40-year-old version of himself in other moments.
Oh
So
yeah, especially when
it's
under pressure. And I
but
think
I
the
think
one
that's
of
going to be the story of the Jets season. I think it's going
mm,
to be, look, you're going to get the best of Aaron Rodgers sometimes. I think he even said it himself after the game, is that sometimes he felt young and sometimes he felt old,
yeah.
and that's going to be what happens. And they just have to hope for those days that he feels younger and he can put up the points when he needs to. And
Mm.
he's going to be seeing the bench a lot.
No,
If they're up by
story
a lot or down by a
yeah.
lot, he will be on the bench.
Story of the Jets season, keep Aaron Rodgers clean. And I think to the Jets' credit, I thought the
They did a
pass
good
protection
job.
was actually good. I
They
thought
did a very good job.
only saw him really get hit twice. So I thought they did a good job there. And I think that's something they're gonna need to do against Tennessee. And Tennessee have a couple of good pass rushers. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons, one of the best interior linemen. You've got Harold Landry, who's a solid pass rusher as well. But I think the Jets can handle that based on what we saw against San Francisco. And I think Tennessee cannot handle that. I mean, I know the Jets defense did get whooped week one against San Francisco, but
To be
Tennessee
clear, against Jordan Mason.
against Jordan Mason, but against Kyle Shanahan. Let me say that.
Yes. No, Shanahan's a
That
genius.
sounds a
So
lot better. But I think against a weak Tennessee offensive line, weaker than San Francisco, and overall just a weaker offense in general, weaker quarterback. I think the Jets defense will have a bounce back. I think Rodgers will do enough. Will get more snaps to actually throw the ball. Expect the running game to be better as well. So I think the Jets take that one.
yeah.
But moving on now to our next game. Good game. I like this one. We've got the Lions against the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, this is kind of I feel like I don't know, I haven't said it on the podcast yet, but they're kind of one of the teams that I'm like a lot higher on than a lot of other people that I really like the Bucks. I think and we saw I mean week one it was against the Commanders, but they looked very good. In particular that offense. I mean Baker Mayfield, one of the best quarterback performances of the week. He looked sharp week one, throwing to obviously having great weapons like Mike Evans, who's just every year he's gonna like go for 1,000 yards every
Ageless, right?
he's inevitable. He's amazing. But then you saw other guys like Jalen McMillan, the rookie. He had a good game as well. Had a touchdown. Godwin looked solid as well. The offensive line was decent. They looked really complete on offense and on defense. Again, they looked fine as well. I mean, Jaden Daniels did hurt them a couple times with his legs, but overall they kept that passing game in check. So I think this is going to be a good matchup with a Lions team that kind of they were on the ropes from time to time. I'm gonna pick the Lions. I really want to pick the Bucks, but I think the Lions are just so good in the trenches, and that's just gonna be the difference. I don't think there's a single team that's more physical right now than the Detroit Lions, and then having them at home as well against the Bucks, I think that's gonna be the difference. So I think Detroit takes that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you said it, you're higher on the Bucks than most people, and you're higher on the
Mhm.
Bucks than I am because I don't think this is going to be necessarily a super close game. But if the Lions play the way they did last week, it could be. I think the key for the Lions is going to be get their playmakers back on the ball when they have to. Amon-Ra St. Brown only had 3 catches this week.
Hmm. Jameson
Um,
Williams had a good game though. He looked
Jameson
very
Williams had a
good.
good game, but
Mhm.
Amon-Ra has been, the steadiest player in that team for the last couple seasons, and he was barely looked at the other day.
Mhm.
Montgomery had a great drive in overtime, but that's about the extent of it. Jahmyr Gibbs was fine. Uh, and defensively, they weren't great. So I think this game is going to be a lot different because their coaching staff is not stupid. They did not play great. They're going to change things. Give me the Lions.
Yeah, I think it's really it's tough to see. If you don't have like those team like I think sorry, I can't speak. But I think with the Lions, one of the things about them is that if they can win not even playing their best, I think it's like it's scary because you know what they're capable of with at their full potential. So I think yeah, no, I think the Lions win that one. Moving on now, we have the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders disappointing performance against the Chargers, didn't really look like they could muster anything on offense. Ravens heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs on in the season opener on Thursday night. Charlie, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I think this can only really go one way realistically because the Raiders aren't a very good football team right now, and the Ravens are a pretty good football team. I would like to see Lamar Jackson actually spread the ball out a little bit more.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not just saying that because I have Mark Andrews on my fantasy team. I truly believe that they are a better offense or offenses in the NFL in general are better when there are multiple weapons, when the quarterback, even when the receivers aren't great, is finding all of them. It's something that Patrick Mahomes does exceptionally well. And that's the reason they've won, as many Super Bowls as they have. He's won three of them. And I think the teams that do that are just a lot better suited. Jordan Love does it really well. Josh Allen does it well. And Lamar just did not do it well last week. I know they were playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have a very solid defense, but he only threw really to Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely.
Hmm.
Two good players, two very good players, likely almost secured a game tying touchdown, potentially game winning if they had gone for two, and got super unlucky and was wearing black cleats. Um, and Zay
For Patrick
Flowers,
Mahomes.
Zay Flowers had a lot of catches, but not a lot of yards. So I know that they try to get the ball into Zay's hands so that he can try and make something happen. He just couldn't get anything going against the Chiefs, to be honest. And Derrick Henry got nothing going at all. They've got a dynamic player in Mark Andrews, has proven to be one of the best tight ends in football. Then they've got a young receiver in Rashad Bateman, and they just need to find ways to get the ball into these players' hands more so that the defense has more to think about.
Hmm.
And I think they're going to do a better job of that because having two tight ends and a running back and a top tier receiver is a really special thing that they could have this season. They just have to be able to use it. And I think not all of it's on Lamar. A lot of it was the play calling. There were so many screens to Zay Flowers that it was kind of getting hard to watch. But
Hmm.
I'm still going to take the Ravens in this one because the Raiders starting quarterback is Gardner Minshew. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
Easy.
think I agree with you that like kind of the Ravens were like they just, I mean, they had to go to, I feel like they had to kind of go to like that kind of offense where they were just getting the ball out in a millisecond, like whether it's to Zay Flowers. I saw a lot of passes to Justice Hill as well out of the backfield, but it was really, I think the main story for me was that offensive line because they struggled at times. I
Yeah.
think Lamar really either was under a lot of pressure or wasn't because he got the ball out so quickly where it was those screen passes. I think they something that really wasn't talked about, I feel like a lot, was them losing three starting offensive linemen from last year. That team that was so good, losing Zeitler, losing John Simpson, losing Morgan Moses. Those are big losses, especially for something as important as the offensive line. I think you saw that against the Chiefs. I think they'll be better, but that is definitely something to monitor against the Raiders defensive line that has Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. That being
Yeah.
said, I also think the Raiders offense isn't going to be able to do anything against this Ravens defense, which I think also, they're not playing the Chiefs anymore. I think they're going to be better. They're going to look
Yeah.
more like they won't look exactly like the Ravens defense from 2023, but they'll still look like an elite defense, top five in the league. So I think that'll be the difference there. I think Lamar will pull off some of his magic, and I think the Ravens take this one at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Moving on now, we have the Los Angeles Rams going to Arizona to play the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they looked kind of fun. They looked interesting. I mean, they were able to they moved the ball well against a good Bills defense. I mean, something at least I consider to be a good Bills defense. I mean, Kyler Murray, he looked good. The offensive line when they were run blocking looked solid. James Conner looked good. I liked what I saw from Greg Dortch as well, Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison, we did not see a lot of week one, but I
I mean,
expect
I feel
that
like
to
we see
change.
more of the highlights of him running down the field wide
Yeah,
open and not getting the
that's
ball.
all. That's the only highlight I can remember. Just him being wide open and Kyler not finding him on a play that might have won them the game. You never know, of course, with Josh Allen on the other side of the field, but it might have won them the game. Meanwhile, the Rams, we talked about that heartbreaking loss to the Lions in overtime, but this is kind of tough. This is a kind of tough game to predict for me because if the Rams had Puka for this game, which I don't think they will have him for this game,
No,
I would
he's
pick the
on the
Rams.
IR, so he's
He is on the
scheduled to
IR.
miss at
Yeah,
least
he is
four
on the
games.
IR. Right. this is kind of a tough game to predict then. But I think I still will go with the Rams just because I just can't trust that Cardinals defense right now. I just think the personnel is just not there yet. And I think they're gonna be relying on their offense to win in shootouts, which they can because they've got enough talent on that offensive side of the ball. I think especially when Marv gets going, which he will. But it's right now it's still really hard to keep up with that defense. So I think give me the Rams in this one. It'll be a fun game. I think a lot of Cardinals games will be really fun watches because of the offense and the defense.
Yeah, I this is also a tough one for me because the Cardinals did look impressive in Buffalo, a tough place to play last week. That being said, I don't think I don't think Puka being out for this one has as much of an impact as people might think. I do really love Puka Nacua. I think he's a fantastic receiver. But Sean McVay is such a genius and probably the best probably the best play caller in the NFL, if I had to pick, because the way he is able to scheme his receivers wide open on every single play is pretty incredible. We saw Cooper Cup a couple seasons ago break the receptions record and break the yards record. And Cooper Cup is not, Cooper Cup is an outstanding player, but he's not some remarkable athlete like CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. And then Puka Nacua last season, in Cooper Cup's absence for a part of that, breaks the rookie receptions and receiving yards record. And another not remarkable athlete just always seemed to be open. I mean, wide open. And the Cardinals don't have a good enough defense to cope with that. Cooper Cup was targeted 21 times last week. I expect him to be targeted close to that many or more this week. And if Cup's going to get that many targets, he's going to get a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns, and that's going to hurt the Cardinals.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cup will be a huge factor. I think we'll see kind of shades of his 2021 season. Obviously, I think it's hard to replicate that, but
I don't know about Shades because he already looks like that player with 14 catches the other night.
I mean, you know how much Stafford loves to target his number one guy. I mean, we've seen that with Cup the last few years. We saw with Puka last year.
Yep.
I think, I mean, I think especially against that Cardinals defense, I mean, look out for that. But let's move on now to our next game. The Cincinnati Bengals going to Kansas City to play the Chiefs. I mean, the Bengals very disappointing loss to the Patriots. I mean, it's kind of almost like we should expect it at this point. I still didn't. But that was I mean, I don't know if something's wrong with Joe Burrow because that was a bad performance from him. I mean, we saw maybe I saw CBS was showing a couple of like him throwing in his wrist, like looked like it was causing him a bit of discomfort maybe, but when he was throwing, it looked
It's no
okay.
excuse. It's the
I
Patriots.
agree. I agree. Especially, I mean, well, they have a good defense, but I think I agree. As a team, they should be winning that. I'll let you predict this one first, Charlie.
Yeah, I think the Bengals were just outright disappointing this week. And I think we kind of knew that was going to happen. We all sort of said something about it.
Hmm.
And then we all took a second and we were like, wait, but they're playing the Patriots. There's no way they
Yeah.
actually lose this, right? They did. And we all
Yep.
picked that game wrong, as did probably 95% of the country. But, things just don't get easier for them this week. They've got to go to Arrowhead and play the best team in football. And look, I don't see them rebounding. The Chiefs have a better defense than the Patriots do. And they also have Mahomes and Kelsey and, Rashi Rice, who surprised a lot of people last week.
Hmm.
Um,
With him being on the field,
with him
but
being on the field.
it
Um, Isaiah Pacheco, can't forget the Taylor Swift factor. That's really important.
is at this point.
Um, yeah, I don't like it sucks because I do like the Bengals and I do like Joe Burrow,
Mm,
but they just don't look good enough.
yeah.
And please prove me wrong. I'd love to see them make another miracle Super Bowl run. It was great. It was really fun while it lasted. It was fantastic. When they were really good, we were thinking Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, we're gonna see showdowns, and now the Chiefs are running the AFC and it's not as fun. So as much as I'd love to see the Bengals return to that, I'm having a really hard time seeing the vision right now. So I'm gonna take the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, I feel like at this point it's just impossible to predict the Bengals to win in
Yeah, it really is
September. It
tough.
just because they just are not the team that we see. like we saw like 2 years ago, or the team that we even saw before Joe Burrow, right before Joe Burrow got hurt because they looked good then. But right now, yeah, I feel like it's just impossible to predict the Bengals to actually win. And I think the Chiefs offense just looked so much more dangerous than last year with Rashee Rice obviously having another year in that system with Xavier Worthy just that end around that looked terrifying for the rest of the league. And best believe he's going to get some of those chances on deep shots as well with Mahomes. I still think Kelsey is still a huge factor, obviously, in that offense, Pacheco as well. So yeah, no, I think this is definitely I would definitely take Kansas City in this one, although I do think it will be I think Cincinnati will make it a game. They'll make it somewhat of a game, but I don't think I can't trust them to win in September.
Yeah, you know what I think our problem might be now that I'm thinking about it is that we all have this image of the Bengals in our head that is a 13 win or a 14 win Bengals team that they're
I
totally
can't get it out of my
capable
head.
of.
I can't get it out of my head.
It's
I think
impossible.
I still see them as Super Bowl, and they might, and they could be, but they just don't. They
Well,
haven't earned that yet.
because
They
it's a
don't.
team
They
with
don't
that
deserve
potential,
that.
because we see Joe Burrow
Hmm.
and we
We see
see what
Jamar
he
Chase. We see
did.
T. Higgins. We
But,
see.
but I think regardless of Chase and Higgins and the rest of their team, you see Joe Burrow and you see a quarterback that has the caliber to be in the Super Bowl. But I'm sort of taking a step back and saying, does he? Or did he just get lucky? Because look, I really do like Joe Burrow, and I truly do think that he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I'm not saying that
Mhm.
this is for sure, anything for sure. But you have to take a step back and think, did he get lucky? Because
I mean, those were great
and
defensive performances. Remember
I
by
mean,
that Bengals
and
defense
it's really
throughout
and
the
it's not
playoff
to
run.
say that he was bad in those games and he got lucky in those games, but is he lucky to be held in that tier in our minds? People had him as their number two quarterback in the NFL for a long time, and some people I'm sure still do, but he isn't. He has to prove it again. He proved one time that he can be a great quarterback. But we don't give those guys like why are we giving him that freedom to be bad every other time? Other quarterbacks don't get that freedom. Daniel
Hmm.
Jones won a playoff game, but he's been terrible in every other season, so he's a terrible quarterback. And I'm not going to
Hmm.
compare Jones to Burrow. I know Burrow's a much more talented guy. Burrow went to the Super Bowl one time, but has been borderline terrible in every other season.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean that he went to the
A lot of
AFC
injury
Championship two
concerns.
years ago. I think in September he's been terrible, and I think it's also partly due to injury. I will
But
give him that.
to be
But
fair,
this
in September
performance,
he's
I
been
think
terrible, but only two times in his career he's played in other months, correct? He's been hurt for the rest of the season twice of his 4 years.
yes, correct. Because rookie year,
So,
then it
rookie
was.
year Joe Burrow and most recent year Joe Burrow have only played in the months of September. So, only two versions of Joe
I
Burrow
think
have
they
actually
played. No,
played
he
full
played. He played in
seasons.
October last year. I'm pretty sure,
But whatever, he hasn't
and
made it a
that's when he
full
started catching
season.
his stride, and then he, whatever, like
And it
elbow
sucks.
or
It really does because I really like Joe Burrow and I think he's a very, very talented quarterback. But if he can't stay on the field and he can't be consistent throughout the season, it's not a 13-win team. It's an 8 or 9 win team.
hmm.
And I think that's just the image that we have in our heads of this team that's right there ready to be in the Super Bowl, but it's not the same team.
No, it isn't. I think that's the main that is the big concern with
Yeah.
Cincinnati. I think it seems like they've fallen. They've fallen behind Baltimore, namely their biggest rival. I think there seems to be a bigger gulf in talent than we've seen in the past
Yeah.
few years between those
They've
two
absolutely
teams.
fallen.
So I think that's why I think it especially a gulf with Kansas City. And I think it's hard to imagine Cincinnati if anyone is to upend Kansas City, it feels like Cincinnati would not be that team at this
No.
point.
Right
Which
now, definitely
which
not.
is something we wouldn't have expected to say like 2 years ago after they barely lost in that AFC Championship.
After we're
In
calling
that
it Burrowhead, after I mean, went to Arrowhead and won.
they don't after they beat them during that season as well, that season where they made it to the AFC Championship, it looked like Cincinnati had their number. And now we're like, this team just isn't a threat at all. It's like
Yeah,
very
it's
with a
we
lot of
were
the same guys that they took to the Super Bowl like 3 years ago.
yeah, no, we were looking at a Mahomes Burrow in the same light as a Brady Manning rivalry. We were
Yeah.
truly everyone was making the comparison,
Hmm. And
but Burrow
I'll
hasn't been
take a step
healthy.
back and say that they can still like kind of recover, but it's like
It absolutely can
Yeah.
be. It's just not looking so likely anymore
Hmm.
because they just there's now a clear tier that separates the two.
Right.
Now that
Definitely.
Mahomes has three Super Bowls under his belt and Burrow only has two complete seasons.
Hmm.
So there's a clear tier in between. And I really hope he does come back and has a great season. But we're getting really off topic. I think we both have the Bengals in this one.
The
Or sorry,
Chiefs.
The Chiefs in this one.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we can move on
Let's
to the next.
yeah, let's move on now to our last 425 game. The Steelers going to Denver to play the Broncos. Broncos, they look good defensively. They forced those two safeties. They made some plays defensively, but offensively still look like a big work in progress. I mean, Bo Nix, we don't know what he's going to turn into, but he did not look good in the season opener. And I think against another tough defense in Pittsburgh, I think it's going to be a similar tale. I think I like the Steelers still going with Justin Fields week 2. I think that rushing attack is going to be something that's very potent, and we saw him get a bit more comfortable throwing the ball, particularly to George Pickens later in that Falcons game. So I think Pittsburgh will take this one as well, going to 2-0. Yeah, no, I think it's not an ideal first two defensive matchups for Bo Nix. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I am also gonna pick the Steelers one in this one. Although I will say I think Bo Nix kind of looked the part this week. Um,
He
he
had
wasn't
moments. He had moments, but he
he
had like some like
wasn't
very
great.
dumbfounding moments, I would
He
say.
struggled because he's a rookie quarterback who is a pretty raw talent. Um, but just based on the way he moves, the way he looks in the pocket, the way he looks when he's not in the pocket, I think he definitely just looks the part. He looks like he could be an NFL quarterback for sure.
Hmm.
And I really like that the Broncos are giving him this chance. It is unlucky that it's coming against, a couple of tough defensive matchups. So yeah, I'll take the Steelers. They have, possibly the best defensive player in football on their team. And the Broncos aren't good enough. But I was very tempted to pick the Broncos in this one, in Denver. I would just barely give it to the Steelers.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's just the Broncos are a work in progress. They're clearly rebuilding. I think some people had high expectations for them, like high expectations. I mean, like make the playoffs. I just can't see it with this team this year. So yeah, take the Steelers here. Now we go into our Sunday night matchup, an interesting one. We got the Bears going to Houston to play the Texans. Caleb Williams in that offense didn't look great, but the defense and special teams won the game for them in week 1. It's kind of maybe like a game you feel like the Bears wouldn't have won their past few years, so that's a good sign. But going against a Texans offense that looked really good against the Colts defense. So, Charlie, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, you said a game that the Bears probably wouldn't have won a couple years ago, but it's a game that the Bears shouldn't have won this year.
Yeah.
You know, God forbid, the Titans run the ball winning the game instead of giving the ball to Will Levis to throw a pick six. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing. And I think that CJ Stroud is going to show Caleb Williams what a top prospect looks like in this game. And it's not going to be close. And the Texans are going to blow him out in Houston because I don't like Caleb Williams and I do really like CJ Stroud. That was not a I don't like Caleb Williams personality. That was I don't think Caleb Williams is that good of a quarterback, and he didn't look the part. He didn't look like that good of a quarterback last week. But um yeah, I think he's gonna just slowly improve. But to go against Houston in this one, it's not a great time to slowly improve because they're gonna blow him out of the water. CJ Stroud and that
Yeah,
offense
no.
are so dynamic that it's gonna be hard to for the Bears to stay in this one.
I think yeah, Houston's defense, I think they're gonna rebound well against after playing the Colts where Anthony Richardson had some huge plays against them. I think Caleb is gonna be he seems like a bit um I mean it's a learning curve. I mean going from college to NFL is very
Yeah,
difficult, especially when you're
absolutely.
playing Pac-12 defenses which aren't exactly renowned for being some of the best in the country. So I think it's definitely there's going to be an adjustment period for Caleb. I still think he's going to be a very good quarterback, but I think for now
Yeah.
it's going to be I think going against DeMeco Ryans, one of the better defensive minds in the game. I think he's going to make it tough for them. I think the Bears defense, I think they really showed a lot. I think they're going to be better than I thought prior to the season. But I still think CJ Stroud with all those weapons, with Diggs, with Collins, with Dell, with Mixon, who had a good game as well. I think it's going to be too much for them. So I think the Texans win this
Yeah.
one at home. But now going into our final matchup, Monday Night Football, we have the Philadelphia Eagles going against the Atlanta Falcons. Very disappointing result for the Falcons to lose week one. And Kirk Cousins looked concerning. I mean, I'm not even talking about his play, but I saw some stat after the game that they only ran Cousins under center, which he's very good under center, 4% of the time. And that was really interesting to me because I think that's something that kind of shows that maybe that Achilles isn't 100% right. They don't trust his movement, that he's just like, and you could kind of see by watching the game, he didn't really move as much, like kind of even less than Rodgers, which I think is something that maybe is like really a concern for the Falcons, especially where their offense line maybe didn't look as good as expected, albeit against a good Steelers defense. So I'm gonna take the Eagles in this one. I think they looked their offense obviously has so many weapons. Brown, Smith, Saquon had a great start to his career. The offensive line, I think, even after replacing Jason Kelsey. I mean, Jurgens was fine. Mekhi Becton at right guard. He actually looked good in his debut as
He did.
well. So I think I think the Eagles offense is going to take it to the Falcons defense, and I don't think Kirk really has that firepower yet to really to go toe to toe with that offense. So I think the Eagles will take this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Eagles are the better football team right now, and they look pretty impressive in week one. Uh, Saquon Barkley.
Look, I don't even think it's a bad decision for the Giants to move on from because I think it just like it makes sense. Like you don't pay a running back when you're in like rebuilding mode, but at the same time, him going to the Eagles, that's just tough.
No, I think it was the right
But
decision at the end of the day. It just hurts. It
yeah,
like it, and it
it
doesn't
hurts. It
make it
hurts.
any better after he
Absolutely.
scores three touchdowns in week one
I think you'll
and
cool
has
down a bit after that,
potentially
but
his best NFL performance, potentially his best ever performance. I think there were better performances that he had in a Giants jersey,
hmm
but one of his best for sure.
hmm
And it just stings. That's all.
hmm
Um, that being said, I heard some people talking about Kirk Cousins in class today, and they were talking about how he was a bad quarterback who didn't deserve the contract he got. And I was sitting there like just confused
hmm
because look, I don't think Kirk Cousins deserved the contract he got strictly because of age, strictly
And
because it was
injury.
interesting. It was just an interesting time to give him that contract, especially and then going to draft Michael Penix in the first
That
round.
was the bizarre move.
It was maybe they drafted Penix as like an insurance plan for in case Kirk wasn't ready. I don't know, but Kirk Cousins is a fantastic quarterback on his day. I really think Kirk is one of those underappreciated quarterbacks who has been so consistently good in the NFL for the past
hmm
10 seasons and is every bit deserving of that contract. The timing is a little weird and the timing is off. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we're talking basic, just player, just salary, I do like it. And he's coming off of an injury, so it's going to take him a couple weeks. He's an older quarterback now. I get it. Playing under center 4% of the time is not how you're going to get him over that injury. It's not
hmm
because
hmm
that's also, I think, how that Falcons offense is going to play their best football. Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins is a very good
It
play
feels
action
like a
passer.
very West Coast kind of offense the way they're kind of designed,
Yeah,
especially with Bijan and Algier as well. I mean,
but I think that they need to play under center because Kirk Cousins, firstly, is a good play action passer.
hmm
Secondly, Bijan Robinson is really, really good and really talented, and running backs cannot get the same full head of steam running football when when the quarterback's in the gun,
hmm
as opposed to when they can start running and pick up the ball, 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage or, 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and just plow straight into the middle of the pile or make a move and get outside, whatever it is. That's what Bijan's going to be good at. And getting the ball on draws and getting it on screens. Look, while it can be effective when used a few times a game, 96% of the time,
it's a wild stat
it's
to me because it
ridiculous.
just it feels like it's the antithesis of Kirk Cousins. And I think
It
again,
does.
just a situation to monitor with that Achilles injury. I mean, I do expect it to get better, but definitely something to watch. I think he's not going to be 100% back from that by the game against Philadelphia on Monday night. So I think the Eagles will take that one.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I'm
with you.
going and that's it for the video. I'm going over all of our predictions. We only disagreed on one, I believe. It was just that Browns Jaguars. I think
I
every
think it
other
is a
one.
relatively straightforward week, though.
I
Um,
agree. I agree.
Thinking based on what we saw last week, I don't think there's a little bit of room for error here. I think,
Mm,
picking the Patriots in a game over the Seahawks isn't crazy. Picking
right.
Dolphins over Bills. I think we
Right.
didn't really talk on Dolphins Bills as much as it deserves because those are
Honestly,
two
yeah.
really great teams. And
Hmm.
then people picking the Bengals, it's still possible. Broncos and Steelers, Texans and Bears. But I think for the most
Bucks
part, at least for
Lions.
the two of us, we kind of agreed on most of what we saw last week. So it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to agree on predictions for this one.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And that is a great way to end the video.
Yeah,
Again, if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully, on the next video, we'll have more than two people. We have two other hosts, Kian and Charlie, and they will be not Kian
that's
and Charlie.
Dylan. Yeah,
That's Charlie. Kian and Dylan, they'll be on videos as well. We also talk about soccer, the Premier League, if you're interested in that as well. We'll have those videos coming out. Make sure to check us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Music. I think we're on that as well. All of those check out because we're probably there. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.